Hey everyone, good morning. Uh,
Afternoon.
Good afternoon. It's the afternoon.
Yep.
Still morning in my mind. Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us. Um, my name is Ife Majimoyo, and I am Aya's program coordinator. We're coming to you live from Aya Educational Institute. I'm also the national site coordinator for the Family Lore Site Program. And I have with me today, and I'm getting some feedback.
Me too. Um, I mean, I hear it. What
Yeah.
can I say?
So I'm here today with Afia and Wakesa Mazimoyo, who are the directors of Aya Educational Institute, co-directors, and they're also my lovely parents. And so we are very excited to be leading the charge for the Family Lore Site Program, which takes our popular Family Lore project that we apply school-wide at Aya Educational Institute, and it takes it to host sites around the country and around the world. So we are opening it up an opportunity for folks in their respective communities, schools, churches to host this program. So we've talked a bit about and some other materials and live streams. We talked about what the Family Lore Project is. But today we are here to talk about family lore for the holidays. So there is no
Ooh.
family lore project. There is no family lore project without family lore. And with the holidays coming up, holidays are the most fantastic time, other than maybe funerals, believe it or not, to gather family lore. And so this live stream is actually inspired by Mama Afia, who had the idea and was inspired to have us all think and prepare a little bit on how we can collect some of the jewels from our family, from our elders during this holiday season. So I want Babu Akessa to come in and talk to us a little bit about the Family Lore Project and the site program before we get into Family Lore for the holidays.
Yo, thank you so much, Ife. Family Lore Project. Family lore, as in lore, not lure, as in Lore, as in folklore. All right. And every family has its lore. It has its stories. It has its sayings. It has its proverbs. It has its pictures. And the things that make the family is actually those stories, those sayings. And one of the things that we've been doing at Aya is using those stories, that family lore, as a foundation for education, for language arts instruction, for complementing the history instruction, even for complementing architecture and science instruction. It's really fantastic when we use the family lore as the basis for educating our children, because what it does, it heals alienation. Now I'm going to bring in my brother here, Amos Wilson, who told me that if we're going to have an African-centered school, it must heal alienation. He also said something famously: we are alienated from ourselves, from our culture, from our way, from our families. We're alienated for one purpose: to serve aliens. And so if we're going to create education that produces students and people who serve our community and our goals of healing, health, and sovereignty, then we have to heal the alienation that has already occurred, and must make sure that as we educate, whether we're talking about math, science, social studies, or anything, as we educate, that we don't replicate the system's alienation process, because we'll then be producing students who who are alienated to serve aliens. So in fact, what we're doing is both healing the alienation that has already happened, and we also are providing an opportunity and a way for us to educate, all of us to educate our children in ways that they learn. It accelerates the learning and makes them closer to their families, to our people, to our culture, to our mission. That, in a nutshell, is the Family Lore Project.
Okay, thank you very much. So tell us a little bit about the Family Lore Site program and what's new about that.
Well, for years now, we have been using this basis, the family lore program and project, to educate. And over the past 2 years, well, actually, in the past year, it's really exploded. All right, well, people have come to know about it. People have come to appreciate its academics, its healing for the family. So our students were asked to speak at the National Conference for Black Studies, NCBS, and they did alongside others who are professors, etc. They were asked to speak in Cuba at the 43rd Annual Cuban Heritage Studies Association. They then presented in Ghana or for the Ghana conference there. They also then just presented at the African Heritage Studies Association. And as a result of them participating in this project, then we actually are working out formal connections between this project and the African Heritage Studies Association. So we said, listen, people are wanting to know how to do this. And so we decided that we would create the Family Lore site program, the Family Lore Project site program, so that different people around the country could host a site that is with our help, with our associate assistants. They then can host sites. They can be schools, they can be after school programs, they can be Saturday school programs, they can be organizations, churches, different conscious organizations, different people who are interested in educating our children, who are concerned about the education of our children, can begin to host a program from January through June. So we're signing people up now so that by January we can get started and have a January through June program where students and that cohort, that group of people meet twice a month, and they begin to use the family lore, that is family stories, as a foundation for both healing family wounds and also accelerating academic success. I want y'all to join us.
Awesome. All right. And for those of you who are interested or know someone who might be, you can apply and also learn more about the Family Lore Project Site program at ayaed.com/FLP. That's AYAED.com/FLP. So, Mama Afia, Mother Dearest,
Yes.
would you tell us about your inspiration for family lore for the holidays?
Well, let's see, Ife. I was explaining to our grandson who's with us this year, Adai, that this time of the year for me growing up, especially in the South, we made extra effort to get our homes ready for anybody who might drop in. People didn't need to call. Actually, where I grew up, so deep into the South, people didn't call anyway. On this day, though, they didn't have to send you word. They didn't have to tell you anything. They could just drop in, and everybody was ready to receive everybody. And you're in the South too, you have to give everybody something to eat or drink, and there's that sense of receiving, that sense of gathering. Probably typically these were the days that we had off from work, so we could come together. And invariably we gather at mama's house, big mama's house, somebody's house in the family. And as you said, a perfect opportunity to get some of this lore that Bible Kes is talking about, a story, sometimes a joke, even, like something about the family that would tell us more about who we were. And I'm super excited, and probably the urgency for me at this stage in my life, having turned 60 now, is I'm feeling a little urgent about it, partly because if we're not careful, all this lore that we could treasure and pass on to our children for generations and generations could be lost. Because as that elder goes, as that elder transitions, there goes the joke, the poem, the recipe, the song that maybe inspired the family or gave them hope in the darker days is gone, because that elder's gone and nobody's gotten it. And for myself personally, all of my father's siblings are gone, and he's gone now, physically, so I can't get some of that. except that I maybe got it earlier or some of my siblings got it. And that's one more way to think of it. Like sometimes it was passed on. So now we got to be good detectives and get it. And on my mother's side, she's with me physically, and she's also in the latter stages of Alzheimer's. So she doesn't know me. So for all that is within her or somewhere, I can't access it. So just feeling a little urgent. And for me and for myself, we're planning some family trips now to go to those most elder family members to get what we can from them. And I also get really excited because in my journey in life, people that I've asked, even though sometimes there might be a little reluctance because, as Baba Kessa said, maybe there is some woundedness there, where people don't feel free to talk. Very often, my elders have been just delighted that I would even ask. And I'm at a point now too where if somebody would ask me, I'll just feel so honored and proud to say. So I don't want to miss out on all that opportunity, and going to go for it. So I'm encouraging all of us out there, especially for our most elder folks, go and get it. Get that lure, get that lure. Ashe.
I love that. Do you want to say something, Professor?
Yes, actually, I want to remind folks also to make sure that parents transmit their lore to their students. I mean, to their children. Very often we think of the elders, and that's very important, what Afia said. And many times, the things that made us who we are as adults, many times we don't pass those on. We don't pass on the incidents. We don't pass on the stories. We're almost waiting to determine that it's really big or that somebody else has discovered it, as opposed to just valuing, our fall downs and getting back up, those things that, and yet this is all of our lore. I mean, remember the so-called failures that turned into valuable life lessons. Share those, okay? You don't have to be a full-blown storyteller. Okay, we're talking about collecting the pieces, and the piece of stories, and also the full-blown stories, as Mama Fia said. So while you're getting at it from the elders, make sure that you also share it with the younger people, not so much as a moral, though of course they all will have morals, but also as a story of your life. Like, what did you do in high school? Who was your crew, your posse, your running buddy? Okay, what was the teacher that you just couldn't stand? Okay, or the one that really made you excited about mathematics, or turn off about chemistry? All right.
And I'm being reminded now, Wakisa, that my father, my dad, he was quite the storyteller. Not formally or not trained or not paid. He was just that grill, that jelly muso, who was just always telling stories about his life. So I knew a lot about his life and what his life had been, and he also told me everything he knew about his parents' life. So even though they weren't here, I got to know about their lives, and he told me all he knew about his grandparents' life. He told me the stories that his father told him. So I was the beneficiary there of two generations of stories, and I realized that I haven't told my children as much about my life, as my dad told me about him. So I want to fix that. So again, over the holidays, over this time off, just want to I'm going to pull them close and say, you know what, when I was in college, you know what, before I met your dad, when I was a little girl, or, now that I'm at 40, tell that story. And I agree with you. Sometimes our students hear only ancestors, and they're thinking the ancestors are gone. No, we're talking about stories of the family, stories in the family that have made us, made our family, made us, that we want to push into the future. And of course, one way to do it is to keep telling it, and one way to do it is to write it down in terms of a book. I don't know if you want to mention the book. And I'm excited, and Ife, I do want to hear your tips. I'm super excited. The notion of this lore just excites me, always has, and I'm just so excited now at Aya that we have a even more systematic way to get more people involved.
Well, we have been successful. This project is in its 5th year, okay? And so it's a mature project. That's why it's being received nationally and internationally. And it's time that we get it out. I really want to emphasize the two parts. One part is the healing part. The other part is academic part, okay? Sometimes we think of the stories as identity, helping us to develop that identity. They do, and that's really important. Also, they help us with the sense of inspiration and motivation, who we are. And so we get identity and we get inspiration. Another thing that happens is we also get strategies, and it also becomes a basis for critical thinking. Many times as we're older, we wonder, how could that child do that? How could they not know that? Well, we haven't told them the stories that would have them glean the values, okay? Glean the context so that they would see how we came to make a certain decision, all right? When they know those stories, then that is the basis for critical thinking. And nobody has to teach them how to think critically, because they will have been surrounded by stories where they learned what were the values and what were the goals and how people before them made difficult decisions based on those. Okay, and I really want to emphasize, because we have all kind of courses, teach critical thinking, we want to make sure the children know critical thinking, and we wonder, why could they make it is embedded in the stories, the value and the mission that's necessary for our youth and for each other, for our families, to make critical decisions. So that's the academic part, and also healing part. The healing part is we healing alienation. There's a sense of identity. There's a sense of connection to them. I also want to emphasize, don't forget the cousins. You know, we talk about mama and big mama and them and big daddy and whatever. Don't forget the cousins, okay? You know, I got so many cousins like crazy.
Right? What about the cousins?
What about the cousins? I mean, back home on the continent, there was age groups, and we were organized in various age groups. Well, a version of that happens to be when you have cousins, because, you know, folks are the same generation and they have children close to the same time. And so they kind of grow up, if they're 3 or 5 or 7, and then they become teenagers together and all of that. And of course, there are many stories that happen between them. Okay. And so getting the cousin stories, all right. And I don't just mean the wonderful stories. Get the stories of stuff that didn't work, you know. I mean, it's the stuff that we laugh about, the stuff that we learn from. It's just important. And not necessarily full-blown stories. Get the proverbs, get the sayings, get the songs. They don't have to be original songs. So when things got kind of rough, you know, and grandma started rocking, what song did she sing? Okay. Or when it was, you know, time to throw down, you know, what was the song that the dad sang? Or when the family got together, you know, you always, I don't care what it was, they were going to sing this song. Now, some families actually, you know, would hold hand around the table and sing. Some families were more singing families than others. Sometimes you had one person who was going to sing the song no matter what, you know, and so we have so many places. Family lore, that is the family's folklore that glues the family together and also provides the fuel for the family succeeding in the future. That's what we're talking about. Family lore for the holidays. Use this period. All right. I mean, I'm not really interested in all the other, what other folks have decided that this time is for. What I think is important is for us to use this time to help heal our families and provide a base. Now, these are tips that we're going to bring to you. But what we really want you to do is we want you also to consider hosting a site so that you get support and instruction for 6 months. And how do you have, now this doesn't have to be a school. This can be your family, okay? We have one family reunion. I mean, they decided that at their family reunion, they're going to host a family little project among their family members. And Mama Fia said it earlier, what we do for all of the projects, we produce a book, okay? A Library of Congress, ISBN number, bam, of family lore, okay? A national compilation. And sometimes local groups will want to produce their own compilation. What we're doing is we're not waiting for someone else to tell us that our stories are valuable. Okay, the students and the families are being affirmed not only because we take the stories in and we use them as a foundation for healing and academic healing, we also publish them and we put those in our local libraries. We're talking about a movement here. We're talking about the Family Lore Site Program. Y'all think about it. We're working with our students anyway. We're trying to have them be inspired to do well academically. One of the reasons that we don't, none of us and our children, is because the academic process of public and private schools is too often alienating. It alienates us as we're learning math. It alienates us from our people and our culture. It alienates us from our family. Do we know who were the math people in our family? Who were the people in our family who really loved math, who really loved science? Do we know the people who loved writing and telling stories? That is, the process of education too often alienates us. And we reject it. At a deep psychological level, we reject it because we're being alienated to serve aliens. And that's why many of us don't do well in those systems. But the opposite is true with the Family Lore Project. That is, students, because it has them closer to them cousins and to Big Mama and Big Daddy and Uncle Hervey and Aunt Rosie and those, because it's closer, then we're motivated to study the material. We're motivated to learn how do you write about it and talk about it in ways that people will appreciate it and not misunderstand it. Academic attention and retention goes up as we engage in this Family Lore Project. Ife, back at you.
All right now. So what we want to do now is actually give all of you some tips for gathering your own family lore, for engaging your own family during the holidays. As Bob Wekesa kind of alluded to, regardless of if you celebrate Thanksgiving or don't, you know, however you feel about these holidays, of course, most of us know they are a gathering place for our families. And they provide such a treasure trove potentially for gathering lore. So our 3 tips. Number 1 is at the family gatherings where you will be for the winter holidays, get with your elders, get with the old folks in your family. And they don't necessarily have to be particularly old, but get with the folks who have been around and ask them some pointed but open-ended questions. Okay, so as opposed to your yes or no questions, ask them pointed questions that are still open-ended. So for example, tell me a story about when you were a little girl or a young man, right? You want to give them a question or a prompt that'll just get them talking. The first phase in the Family Lore Project is getting the stories flowing, right? And so that's what you want to do, is just get the stories flowing, get the conversation going, okay? Tell me about your favorite Thanksgiving as a child. What did your mom make at Thanksgiving that you loved the most? Is there a recipe for that? Can I get the recipe, right? That is a piece of family lore, that recipe, right? It would be written at that point that it gets written. But of course, in the Family Lore Project, we collect both written and oral literature. Okay. A question like, who was grandma's favorite, right? Favorite child, favorite grandchild.
That'll get a conversation going.
Exactly. Get into some of the juicy stuff, right? Who's the matriarch of the family? Who's been the patriarch of the family? Who's the jokester in the family? What joke do you really, can you recall them telling? What is something that the family is most proud of or has been most proud about, right? That's where you get some of the values that Bob Wekesa was talking about coming out in conversation. And if you don't know or have a question, ask about that oldest person in the family. Who are they, right? It might not be an aunt or uncle or great, grandparent or so. It might be a second cousin, right? Like Bob Wekesa said,
might be an uncle that's not a real uncle, but it's an uncle.
Exactly.
Right.
For instance, right, I have a second cousin on my dad's side who has supplied so much of the genealogical information that I have and that I treasure. And he occupies the place of a great uncle for me, right? And technically he's a cousin. So don't forget about the cousins. So who are the old people? Who are the oldest or the eldest in the family? Where do they live? How are they doing? Right? Maybe
How did we get here? How did our family get here?
absolutely.
Mhm.
Questions about migration are so can be so telling. If you
Mhm.
are doing any genealogical research, this is a great time to get your questions in. Well, whose daddy was such and such, or who was such and such's daddy? Um, and most importantly, ask the question. Once you get the conversation flowing, ask the questions that are really on your heart, right? I know, Mama Fia, you have questions about certain people in the family, certain stories in the family, because after the people who you want to talk to, after they pass, there will be no more getting any information about those people. So those questions that you have that you've been holding, or you've been like, I need to go talk to Aunt such and such before she passes because she's getting up there, go get with those people and ask them those questions. Okay. Ashe. Number
Ashe.
number two tip is to use a photo album to get the conversation started.
Pictures.
Exactly. If there's a family photo album where the Thanksgiving gathering is gonna be, go grab it or ask someone for it. Get the family Bible if there's one, and start from there. You can also just start with the pictures that you've seen family share on Facebook, wherever they are. Start with those. Ask about those. Well, when was this? Well, where was this? Well, where was that house at? Who built that house? Was that after y'all moved from such and such a street? Use the photos and have them get connected with the photos too, so that they can remember, and it'll spark memory for them. And then y'all be all over the place.
And Ife, I was thinking, photo albums are so good for that. Also, in many of our homes, especially of old, there are so many pictures on the wall, pictures on the mantelpiece. We tended to like really, really honor and revere our people in that way. So just take a stroll and
Yeah,
start asking. Because the
great.
people that family treasures, very often they'll have them somehow pictured.
Yeah.
One other category of questions is skills, or work. Like like if I think of the men in my family, do I know the work that they did? Do I know the skills that they had, over the line? It's like, what? My granddaddy built houses? I never knew he built houses. Because when I came along, he was a minister and he had churches and whatever, so he'd stop building. All right. And we're like, wow. So what are the skills in the family and down the line is really important.
Absolutely.
And for those of you who are older, also ask some questions of the younger. Okay.
And that takes me to my last tip, which is get your children or your parents involved. So, based on where you are in terms of your age positioning, get your children involved. So, not only share with them your stories, right? Please do not take for granted the value of just your own living, right? For all the stories my parents have told me, sometimes I'm like, well, just how was your everyday life like? Like, what did you do every day, right? Did you catch a bus? Did you walk to school?
Mm-hmm.
Were there still dirt roads? Like,
Mm-hmm.
you know what I'm saying? I mean, those of us who didn't live in the time, we can't live in that time, right? And we're either going to fill it with, I don't know, stuff that we've gotten from media or whatever, or it will just kind of remain blank. So please share with your children. Also, as you're talking to the elders in your family, bring your children along. The way that I got my start with genealogy and family lore was because at a funeral repast one time, my dad took me and said, hey, we gonna go talk to Aunt Pig. I didn't know who Aunt Pig was or where she was from, but he said, you coming. I didn't want to talk to her. I was shy and timid and I didn't know this lady and who's Aunt Pig, right? But after 5 or 10 minutes, I was into it, right? So grab your children, get them involved, have them start to own the family story, right?
You think we can compete with television? Can these stories compete with television?
Without a doubt. Let me tell you something. Once you get enough information, for me as a child, once I got enough information that there were questions that I wanted to investigate, I was on my own. I had my own investigative saga, drama, right? That I was in. I didn't have to watch nobody do it. It was like I had to figure these things out. So I was on my own journey, and without a doubt was more exciting than dramas on the television, right? Okay, so if you are
I just want to say that I had no idea about how you got your start. So I just feel very honored to know that you got your start that way. And in honor of Aunt Pig, Aunt Louvenia, you know, she's no longer with us. Just such an honor to her, and I'm glad you took that opportunity, and because it was pregnant, you know, and her time was a little with us after that. So I'm so proud that you could see that opportunity and jump with it, because I'm glad that you pulled her over. And I had no idea. I did know. I will say to you, Ife, it's been obvious that you have this thirst of knowledge, especially on the genealogy side. Like you want to know, you want to figure it out for both sides of your family. You're on fire about it, and I really appreciate it. You know, there's I want to say too, there's somebody like that in all of our families, I think, who have that fire, who's been trying to figure out who the family members are, been trying to make the connections and also gather up the story. So we want to figure out who that is. Usually we can just ask the question and also get to that person to get that wealth of information as well. Ashe.
And this process actually will have it be where more of all of us start to ask those questions, okay, and ask from different perspectives. And yes, there is the person that we can identify who really kind of carries it. At the same time, we want to normalize again. See, right now, we talk about other people's stories. We come together and we talk about, you know, how many points somebody scored and that story. We talk about the latest song and that story. And we talk about the drama and the star's life and that story. We talk about 45 and that story. And what's getting pushed aside?
Netflix stories and Amazon Prime stories.
Is our story, okay? And let me tell you, when it comes to drama, our lives,
over generations.
Over generations, they can't hold a candle to it. And so it's really important that we make our families storytelling families again, where we're telling our families, because if we want to heal our families, if we want to have that family cohesiveness again, then we want to have everybody learning and telling the stories. Now, this is important because in this kind of area of specialization, we'll pan that off to that's Aunt so-and-so's thing. But then she gets to be lonely. Nobody wants to hear it. You know, she keeps bringing it. What we want to do is find her so that the stories are let loose throughout our family. And that's the Family Lore Project. And that's the healing part of it. And I'm hearing my mother said, well, Kessa, don't make them happy twice.
I want to say quickly to your point that I believe that this becomes new for each generation, right? So my parents have done what they have done. They've heard from their elders, their parents. You know, they have had their journey and will continue to have their journey with family discovery, right? And it is a whole new thing for myself, right? As my nephews take on and participate in the family.
Lost you.
Yeah.
Okay, so
she's checking her connection.
Yes, one of the things that's what she was saying that's critical is the need for each generation to define itself as a part of the family lore. Okay, and so it's so critical that that we do that. And so you know, for us, and you know, it's really been great talking about this project. I think Ife will be back in a moment. I cannot tire of talking about it. Afia, I'm really glad that you have had the idea for this program, Family Lore for the Holidays. so that we take advantage of this time that we have with family to garner family lore. Now, I also want to make sure that we record it, okay? That we bring out most cell phones have a record button. Click on it, okay? So we begin to record the stories. And then if you choose to host a family lore project, then we talk about how do you use that you gathered for even more cementing the family lore, and how do you use that family lore to promote family healing and academic success. And so to me, it's really powerful. It's been a powerful journey. Now, y'all know the power of storytelling, okay? If you don't, I'm here to say there is nothing, okay, for planting ideas in people's minds, okay? There is nothing more powerful than story. What do I mean plant? Don't we need to plant ideas in our children's minds, in our own families' minds, in our people's minds? Yes, we do, okay? And so with that, I want to invite everybody to apply to the Family Lore program, to host a Family Lore site is what we want everybody to do. Welcome back, Ife. So how about I did my best to fill out, close us out, love.
I appreciate that. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. We hope that you will use these tips and pick up the charge in your own family. There's so much treasure for us all. And if you would like to do this for your family, organization, group, community, if you would like to help facilitate this kind of learning, healing, growing, deepening, foundation building for students or youth in your community, please join us. You can find out more at ayaed.com/FLP, ayaed.com/FLP, or contact me and I'll help you out.
Tell them stories, y'all.
Hey, get those stories. And happy family.